So you're not actually going to see a setting that looks anything like D&D. And it's our feeling that, the reason we want to do that is because everyone has done D&D. And that's the reason we never wanted to do fantasy in the first place. Because everyone has their fantasy setting, they all sort of look the same. So we're all doing things that radically alter.
Because you know, we do lots of stuff that looks the same.
I'm a big jerk who's been fighting FantasyCraft for a long time.
Yeah.
Just because I'm an anti-fantasy guy, because I don't like doing the same thing.
I was right behind you. I didn't have a setting until the book came out.
Right. I just happened to be sitting there stabbing fantasy in the heart over and over again.
Yeah.
Until we found something that really worked, and that kind of guides us to the what's in the tube.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah. So we really wanted to have a poster. We had this discussion a few weeks ago that was just like, we're like, what are we going to do for a cover of this book? And I looked at every fantasy book that I had, and I looked at every fantasy novel. I went to the bookstore, I looked at it, and I go, God, these things suck. It's always some dude who's like, you know, he's posing, or he's got ghosts flying around him, or you know, or it's that Elmore sort of like, oh, look, a dragon's on my shoulder, but otherwise I'm alive. There's still life.
Fantasy art tends to be kind of static. As dynamic a setting as it is, it's always about...
Envision a cover, take the characters, now in your mind, replace them with fruit.
Right.
Has the cover actually changed that much?
Right.
Most of the time, no. Yes, there's a large watermelon menacing the orange, but...
The other half stemmed from a conversation that we had about one of the fantasy PDFs we're putting together, where Scott was describing what he wanted for the dwarf art.
We had a man, one of the projects that's actually very close to completion for PDFs is the classic fantasy races, which kind of got this thing rolling. And we put together the mandate on this, and it's, if you play a dwarf, you want to leap screaming headlong into 1,000 orcs and come flying out the other side covered in blood saying, "How you like me now?" That's a Spycraft dwarf. So,
right.
We thought we could do that for a lot of things, actually. So,
and we wanted the cover art to really scream that. So the cover art process,
art design.
How many people here have actually ever worked in art design? No? Okay. A little bit.
Oh yeah.
Grab some unsuspecting artist and tell him what you want him to do.
Right. Yeah. And it always starts. It always starts with one basic idea and then mutates several times over the course of the project. And this probably mutated like 2 or 3 times.
That's right. That's right. And I insisted on kick-ass.
Yeah.
You're going to see it eventually, and I'm going to claim teeth for my contribution. I want teeth.
Yeah, and I when we were talking about it, I had come up with a basic concept, and it was cool, but it was wildly over the top. It had way too much detail, way too big in scope. The characters.
No artist could possibly deliver this. On
well, this is the way I think, right? And Tony Scott lives in my head, and so I had drawn a sketch to try and explain how this would actually work. And everybody told me I was crazy, and then we started talking to Scott, and he threw in some ideas, and we eventually wound up with what we consider to be
the finest iteration.
The finest iteration of the cover, which was this.
All right. You take
FantasyCraft.
You see, we got the Night City with the stink lines, and we have the giant foot. And then we have the guy saying, "Oh shit!" with he's holding a donut.
Yeah. And, this is my mad skills, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, and we have the
apparently our fantasy is interracial because we got the.
Is there a John Harris in the room?
No.
Nobody lost their badge. Okay.
Nope.
Sorry to bother you.
Yep. And so, yeah, creature foot, talon, or whatever. There. So that's pretty hot. Huh?
This was the start. My concept was
action.
Yeah, Godzilla. Fighting the creatures,
That's right.
the adventurers.
Little did we didn't tell you that we actually got the license to Kingdom of Loathing for an RPG.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the settings of the book. Just kidding. Yeah, it's pretty odd. So actually,
this is our backup idea.
This is our backup idea for what the cover might look like. This is by a guy named Ben McSweeney.
Some of you have seen him in the forums and things like that.
Yeah, he is phenomenal. And
so the protagonist, amongst all the corpses, you can see our protagonist here. We have the ranger who's stabbing an orc in the throat or something like that. Here in the hand of the giant is the halfling who shot it full of arrows.
You can actually see the giant is frothing at the mouth from poison.
Yes.
He's been poisoned like 19 times.
We have the mage next to the obligatory craters, And then of course the ogre who's looking at
Looking up.
past the tongue and teeth at his next
target is the creature's tonsils.
And this could be teeth or an XP delivery device.
Yes. So
This is the black and white version. There will be a color version,
Yes,
which we're going to premiere the black and white version when we get back home. We're going to premiere the color version in a couple of weeks, and this will be the cover of our forthcoming FantasyCraft product. If anyone wants to see this, we can pass it around. And take a look at the greater detail.
Because the amount of detail.
Or if you really are interested in the Kingdom of Loathing license one, we can give you that. So FantasyCraft, it'll have several settings. In a nutshell, we'll have your Conan one. It's basically like Conan, low tech.
Yes, it's sword and sorcery.
Sword and sorcery. I'm producing one that is basically what if Jerry Bruckheimer put together a fantasy setting on $300 million budget. It's insanely over the top.
That's right. It's Pearl Harbor fantasy.
That's
me.
Only good?
Yeah, and without the Kate Beckinsale love story, unless you really want to put it in there. And Scott is producing...
as close as I could come to doing a normal D&D, which, yeah, it won't seem like that once you get to it.
We have a couple of other really creative people working on stuff. We've got one that's going to be an Asian fantasy, Asian sorcery one. And what am I missing? There's a couple more.
Cloak and Dagger.
Cloak and Dagger, of course.
Yes, so it's actually fantasy spies.
Right. Yeah.
And several others to surprise you with.
Yes.
Right. So FantasyCraft is going to be the complete package. It will offer races, magic, a gear variant that allows you to kill things and keep their stuff. It will include, Wormstone is the setting I'm missing. Wormstone by Brandon Gillespie. You may have heard about it throughout the weekend. It's a really bitchin' new setting that they've created that I can't do justice for. Do you want to give a few words to? We're on YouTube, by the way. So.
On YouTube.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That would be Brandon we're pointing at beyond the range.
Back behind the camera. No,
Right,
okay.
right. For security clearance reasons, I think he doesn't want to be seen.
I would say that it's a high fantasy that's set more in the Renaissance era. Is a better way to look at it. It has Asian flavor to it. It has a lot of sailing things and many different worlds involved. So it's probably the simplest way to put it.
It's epic school.
It does have an epic.
It's incredibly epic. it's part of Living Spycraft, and we have a 7-year set of story arcs that will be cascading out through all the missions and scenarios. And it's community-based, wiki built. We're inviting the community to help out. So
that's going to be really, really exciting. And what else is going to be in that product? You may have seen Spellbound. Spellbound has dedicated classes. Those will continue. However, Spellbound will have 2 base classes that FantasyCraft will have 2 base classes that roughly are analogous to the magic user and the cleric, roughly, and a selection of Spellbound spells and a few new ones. For those of you asking, somebody will ask. I'm sure somebody's curious. The PDFs leading up to this release will have independent content, just like the book will have independent content. So there's the 2 are not 100% overlapping. And there will actually be some in the PDF series that are not in the book, some additional stuff that we're doing. So that was the big stuff, and upcoming products. 10,000 bullets next.
Okay, so yes, at the point